Welcome to another edition of Real Bigfoot Encounters with Reverend Jeff. This week's story comes to us from the home of many famous sightings, Skamania County, Washington. It's in the shadows of Mt St Helens. Researchers have a run-in with something they can't explain. Let's hear his story. My name is John. I've been Bigfoot researching for more than 35 years. I've found many tracks and much evidence of the creature, but never once have I seen it. My friend Tom and I decided it was time to take our Bigfooting to the next level. We have lived in Skamania County for a couple of years now, and the stories based around Ape Canyon were just too much to ignore. Now we've decided it was time to get up into the area and just see what we could find. Tom and I packed up our gear and headed out for Ape Canyon. We had the maps and the GPS numbers, but getting into the canyon was no easy task. The miners that had their encounter here must have really been hard men, as the hike in alone just about killed us. We arrived at the entrance to the canyon just about mid-afternoon. The exact location of the cabin attack had been lost throughout the years, so we hiked up nearest the location as we could gather and began to set up camp. Most of our gear was made up of audio and video gear, as we were really hoping to have an encounter, or at very least to collect some audio of the unknown calls, so we waited for night to descend. The first night we were there was just absolutely dead. It was as if the world had simply shut off. The sky was clear, the temperature had dropped down into the low 40s. We made Bigfoot calls and tree knocks a few times that night. We heard nothing in return, so we just sat and talked quietly around the fire. The next morning, Tom and I hiked up the canyon a bit to get a vantage point of our camp. Once we gained some elevation, we realized the berries were ripe on the slopes, and that there was a small pond over the hill behind our camp in just the same location. We noticed a lot of wildlife activity on the sides of the canyon as we hiked up the area all day. Eventually, we made it over to the berries and to the pond, and noticed the game trails were heavily in use, and just about everything in the area came to the pond to drink, so this would be our target for the night. We went back to camp, and we geared up just about dusk, and moved to the vantage point over the pond and settled in. A few hours later, we saw a pack of coyotes invade the pond, yipping and hollering as they do. Shortly after they moved off, Tom, who was listening to the parabolic mic, heard something big coming towards the pond. Moments later, a large body appeared from the woodline. We thought it was a bear as it was on all fours and approached the pond, and my camera couldn't zoom in far enough to get any real detail on just what it was. Tom said he could hear it drinking from the pond as it disturbed the water. Just then, something caught the animal's attention, and that's when everything changed. We both sat there in amazement as what we thought had been a bear drinking stood up on two legs, tilted its head back, and let out a blood-curdling howl, almost exactly like the ones you hear in the Bigfoot documentaries. It stood there, wavering back and forth, stepping in place. Tom said he could hear it grunting and making soft whoops. It walked back towards the woodline, and we expected it to disappear, but instead, it snapped off a low-hanging branch and smacked it 3 times on the tree, followed by another loud whoop I could actually hear with my ears. Just a couple of minutes later, 2 smaller creatures came into view, both walking on their hands and legs like a gorilla might do, and they approached the pond and drank as well. The animals were no doubt comfortable with the drill, as the larger creatures stood watch over the smaller ones. I kept trying to get a good view of them on the camera, but there just wasn't enough light to make out what they were. I managed to snap a few frames, but they turned out to be just nothing but dark, blurry forest. Just then, Tom repositioned himself and snapped a small branch. The sound echoed down the canyon walls and spooked the creatures at the pond. The larger animal scanned the hillside, and I swear it looked directly at us. Just then it screamed out in a shriek, and the young ones bolted into the woodline, followed quickly by the adult. We sat there stunned as if we were in shock at what we had just witnessed. We maintained our location until the sun came up. Nothing else had even moved through the area after the shriek of that Bigfoot rang out. As soon as we could, Tom and I made our way over to the pond to check out the tracks and hopefully get some evidence of the encounter. We were so disappointed to find the ground near the pond was mostly loose stone and hard-packed clay, not leaving any prints we could cast. We followed the disturbances into the woodline, hoping maybe the ground was better there, but it seemed the creatures had escaped without a trace. I picked up the branch that the creature had broken from the tree and used to knock with. It was at least 25 pounds and 8 feet long, but it didn't look that big in the creature's hands the night before. I searched it for hair, but again nothing was left behind. We would have been satisfied with the audio and blurry pictures we managed to capture this time around. We'd have no choice. We made our way back to camp and started to pack up our gear, when from the distance on the other side of the pond, a single tree knock rang out. We were plumb out of time, and a long hike out of the canyon ahead of us just didn't give us the ability to go follow up on it. We hiked out of the canyon and back out to the truck. We always had the feeling of being watched the whole way back, but never a glimpse of anything that day. We go back to this location often, but we've yet to see them again. For these men, being in the right place at the right time gives them a view they will never forget. For me, it was another fantastic, real Bigfoot encounter. Thanks for listening. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you.